name is Amanda Joy Anderson, and welcome to my channel. Thank you guys for joining me. Now, if you guys have not checked out my new series, Meltdown to Enlightenment, it is all about Plutonic themes and experiences that I have gone through, different perspectives that I had to look at, and how I learned about myself through my experiences and what those experiences have taught me. Please go ahead and check that out, because you may find similarities in your own stories. And if you find yourself coming up to a wall, or you're having a really hard time kind of breaking through any kind of personal issues, definitely check that out, because I try to give as many solutions and different paths that I walk to get through certain issues. Please make sure you like and subscribe. So today I am going to be talking about Scorpio rising and Pluto in the first house relationships and why they are so important. So I just wanted to put some resources out there for you guys. And this one is Pluto by Jeffrey Wolf Green. If you do not have this book is incredibly insightful. And I just think it is really beautiful. It talks about Pluto through all the signs and all the houses. If you do not have this book, please check it out, because it is a really great book. And then the number 2, Pluto number 2, this one really talks about your different planets and your Venus and your Mars and the relationship dynamics that we go through in life, whether if they're karmic or twin souls or and everything in between. This is also a really good book. I'm still reading this one, which I think is quite fascinating. So Scorpio risings and Pluto in the first house kind of have this forever quest to know themselves, and it goes very deep into obsession, and they may go many different avenues in life just to figure out who they are. And part of this is having Pluto in the first house, as well as being a Scorpio rising. But it is the intensity to know oneself. And what we see when we look into like evolutionary astrology is we see the polarity point in the 7th house, which the 7th house represents Libra. And it also represents relationships, balance, and justice. So when we look at the polarity point in the 7th house, that reflection from relationships tells us so much about ourselves. When we look at Scorpio rising and Pluto in the first house placements, what we start to understand is that the relationships that we are in are a reflection of us, a reflection to teach us who we are. And sometimes those relationships can be full-blown disasters. And that is all right, because it's there to teach us some kind of lesson. Sometimes these lessons are about boundaries. Sometimes these lessons are about our self-worth. Now, to get a better picture of this, we can look at our North Node and our South Node. Hey guys, I wanted to pull up my chart so that way we can use it as an example. So here, Scorpio rising, Pluto in the first house. What does Scorpio represent? Well, we have mysteries, occult, deep hidden knowledge. So, and the first house is the house of Aries. So, Aries represents self, the individual, entrepreneurship. So, we can look, and here in the polarity point in the seventh house, we have Taurus. And Taurus represents stability and values, which is super important, especially for Scorpio risings, because this is a whole sign chart. And in whole sign, it's a little bit different from Placidus in the way that it just depends on how you connect with it. To me, I find that whole sign represents a little more of my inner child because of where it places my north node and kind of where my ambitions are. So it makes a little more sense for me that way, but I do resonate with Placidus and whole sign. So back to the Taurus in the seventh house representing stability and value in the seventh house represents Libra. And so when we look at why relationships are so important, we have to understand that we have a huge funnel action happening through the chart. Bear with me here. Okay. We have this huge funnel action happening through the chart. And what's happening, because Pluto and Scorpio are extremely magnetic, what we find is that all this energy in the chart is funneling down through this area, through the polarity point. And so the seventh house represents the polarity point. And this has a huge, huge deal for Pluto in the first house, because this is what your lessons, the theme of your lessons are going to be. So if you're a Scorpio rising with Pluto in the first house, a lot of your life lessons are going to be about your values. How do you value yourself? Looking at your own personal stability, is your life situation, are your partners stable? Do they bring you these stable foundations? And if not, what is that trying to teach you? Now we can look into the North Node and the South Node. And learning about our North Node and South Node is huge. You see how my South Node is conjunct Venus here? And what that represents is that this funnels into my seventh house. The South Node in Venus, they feel that they are meant to suffer. So people with displacement may experience something like that and may experience quite a bit of suffering in their life, feeling like they have to suffer, feeling like they have to atone for certain experiences past, and also they may feel that in the present. And the North Node, because I like to think of the North Node and the South Node a little bit like the yin and yang symbol, because we can look at them as polar opposites, or we can understand there's a little bit of Virgo and Pisces, and there's a little bit of Pisces in Virgo. So we could say, like, someone that has had a lot of drug use and is on a spiritual experience is not that different from someone that hasn't and has had a spiritual experience. But what is different is the structures taken place chemically. So we can see that the structure is still present within Pisces, and then within Virgo, you can have all these structures in place, but those structures can also create illusions. So say someone with Venus conjunct the South Node can have a lot of illusions about themselves. Understanding the relationship between your North and South Node can give you a really good idea of what kind of lessons are coming through in the 7th house, which is going to be the main focus of any of your relationships. And because I like to think Venus really represents how we feel about ourselves, and then Mars represents of what we look for in another person. But this can also be different, and you can experience it differently based on sexes. If someone has a south node here in Virgo and they see themselves as that they have to atone or that they have to suffer, well, that reflects back here through Taurus. And Taurus is going to show you, okay, well, is that value in alignment with yourself? And this is really the beautiful thing about Scorpio, is that it's about the discovery of self, understanding the mysteries about yourself, understanding the subconscious, unconscious mysteries about yourself. And this will allow you to really start to visualize what your values look like. With Taurus, sometimes we can have boundaries come in, and we can look at our self-worth. Are we taking action with our boundaries where we feel that that is in alignment with our values? And sometimes we may notice that people can be manipulative or narcissistic, and we may find that our boundaries are not in alignment with what we truly believe. We may allow people to walk on us. Vice versa, coming in Scorpio risings, when they are younger, sometimes they can be a little narcissistic themselves, and this will be reflected back to them to see if that is something that is in alignment with their own personal values. And it may go back and forth through relationships for a really long time, trying to reflect back your own nature. Is this in alignment with your values? So this is something to think about when we reflect back on our life path and our life choices, and trying to understand why it is that we experience the relationships that we do. Because we're going to experience whatever is meant to transform us, and it's going to funnel down this little avenue, so that way it can go into Scorpio to transform. Now, some of you don't have Scorpio in the 1st house, and you may have Libra or you may have Sagittarius. Understand that that is still, Pluto is still trying to transform that area of your chart. So if it's in Libra, it's trying to teach you even more about yourself in relationships. And then because you would have Aries in the 7th house, and understanding that having Aries in the 7th house is sometimes you have to focus a little more on yourself, and you have to allow that area of your relationships to transform. And then also with Sagittarius, because you would have a Gemini in the 7th, and you would have to understand that there is a higher thinking, a higher way to communicate the things that you are trying to communicate to other people in relationships. And you may experience things from other people, and their communications can be quite harsh for you. And understanding and kind of pulling that into the Sagittarius energy, and really understanding how you can transform that through Pluto for higher knowledge, higher understanding, and being able to communicate that back to people. And sometimes people won't understand that, and that's okay, because not all people are able to pull from different perspectives. And sometimes people are very seated in where they live, and that's okay, because they have Pluto in their chart, and that is trying to transform them. So I hope this is a good example of what Pluto in the 1st house looks like, and why relationships are so important, because it is truly about the transformation of these energies. And if you are younger, understanding that right now with the Pluto in Capricorn, you're having a lot of experiences and you're having a lot of heart opening moments. And this is trying to push you to break down those structures, to break down those harsh walls, to break down those harsh ways of thinking, because it's all about trying to teach you about yourself in the first house. Instead of just points on a map, we can look at it really like a still life of these lessons that we are working through and these lessons that we are moving through. So when we talk about Scorpio rising and Pluto in the first house, a lot of these lessons are not easy lessons. If you're a Scorpio rising, you are going to be working through your self-worth issues. Now, if you have Pluto in the first house, whatever sign is in the seventh house, it's going to be magnified there. And you're going to have many life lessons in that place. Now, it's not to say that we don't have these experiences, these very intense experiences that can be life-changing and they can be very hurtful, but it's really to create awareness about ourselves and our own presence in other people's lives. Experiences are meant to humble the soul and to reflect back to us how we are in relationships, what our emotional states are. And sometimes that can be very hard to see if you've gone through almost a terrible relational experience, because we're so busy focused on what that person or what that relationship has done to us that we almost fail to see the real lesson in it. And sometimes it could just be, okay, like maybe I need to develop better boundaries for myself. Maybe I need to start realizing that I don't have to suffer in my relationships, and that that's not anything that I have to deal with. And if I notice that that's a pattern happening, then I will move on. And it's lessons like that that end up adding up, that put us in devastating relationships, because with Pluto we're going to experience these power plays, these power dynamics, and sometimes we're going to be the ones with all the power and create excruciating experiences for other people, and sometimes they're going to be the people with all the power and create excruciating experiences for us. And so this is why the seventh house is so important, because it represents balance. And this is what we truly need if we are going to move forward in healthy relationships. We have to honor that seventh house and that balance, and understanding that we have to work these kinks out. Understand that Pluto is a teacher, and it's truly meant to teach you about yourself and in all the ways that we are. On the deepest layer, what you are really doing is learning about yourself, and yourself in your relationships. This is going to be your best guru in life. Even though you can pay all kinds of money to all kinds of different avenues and get all kinds of different tarot readings and astrology readings, like I'm not knocking that, but I mean, you know, we're obsessive people. So with understanding yourself and that quest to want to know who you are as an individual, it's through your relationships. And I know some of those relationships get really hard, and which causes you to go in isolation. You guys know this very, very well from having to go into relationships and then going back into isolation and having to peel off the layers that are not you. This is your process. This is your working process to understand who you are. And you are really your best guru in life. And your relationships will reflect that. Okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one. Bye, guys.